This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Welcome you in to Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network, SiriusXM channel 158, alongside Jonathan Von Tobel, Stormy Buonantony with you, live as always at downtown Las Vegas, Circa Resort and Casino. Producer Justin Emery at the controls. What's going on, dude? How are you today?
Pretty good. Pretty busy morning. You know, we are getting down to the nitty and the gritty with our college football betting guides. Make sure you guys check that out when it is available. Due date for all of the written work coming up on Friday. I don't know off the top of my head when the hosts are due for their selections, but I'll have to get that in as well.
I'm sure Adam will tell us when he joins us in a little bit.
Yes, and that leads into Adam being with us a little bit later, but some would argue up to the eyeballs in work, but it's a good amount of work because football season's here and there's nothing more exciting and easier to get ready for, I think, outside of the NBA for myself than football.
No question about it. And as we alluded to there, VSiN.com managing editor Adam Burke going to join us for half an hour today like he usually does on a Tuesday. He'll be in studio, talk through several conferences that he has written for the college football betting guide, some new coaching hires who he thinks could make the biggest impact, one of which we will discuss today as well. Actually, a couple we'll discuss today as well, which leads us to how we always set the table here on Money Moves. Time to run it down.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is the Rundown.
Our Money Moves college football top 25 reveal will continue today. We got two teams from the Big Ten on deck, one of which we covered his former team yesterday. Headed to the big house with Kyle Whittingham entering his first season as head coach at Michigan, as well as out west to Washington. Can the Huskies take a step in year 3 under Jed Fish?
You like that? You like the way I put that?
I did.
Right? B-U-N-G, that's how I do it here. The rundown's very creative today, so you can tell who did it.
Wow.
I am very interested in both of these teams. Look, for Michigan, it's obviously a change in regime and some expectations, as they always do with that program. And for Washington, a lot of returning production on offense, and this should be a group that should be pretty good, but a really challenging and interesting schedule. So both teams I am very interested in. One of them I have a stronger feeling of success is imminent than the other.
Okay. Damon Williams, one of those returning starters for Washington, whether he wanted to be or not, which we will get into as well. We'll actually hit SEC talk first, though, today with Media Days rolling on in Tampa. Also on deck, our NFL training camp road trip makes its second stop to Hotlanta. Will we see a revitalized Tua Tagovailoa in 2026? The Falcons are the longest shot in the NFC South, JVT, but for a wide open division. Could there actually be sneaky value on this team?
There is out there in 2ATL because I think he's going to win the job, and I think he is no, he's not a dark horse candidate. I guess the odds would be he is a candidate for most valuable player. So play this back when he doesn't even win the job. But it does seem that the Falcons, if you read some of the smoldering coming out of early camp notes, was maybe this is just going to be, let's see if Michael Penix can season up a little bit before he gets ready. And I think that Tua won't give the job back.
Yeah, he is the favorite to be the week 1 starter where things sit right now, whether it's the prediction markets or your traditional betting odds. And I know you are somebody who has higher expectations on Tua and this team than the standard markets do. We'll discuss some of those bets a little bit later on. Did you know that while the Jets have the longest postseason drought in the NFL, Atlanta's got the second longest. 8 straight years they have missed out on the postseason.
Did not know that at all, actually. It's a good nugget.
I wonder if somebody could put them out of their misery. That's how we're going to transition to Major League Baseball here to get things started. Interesting start for the NL Cy Young favorite Jacob Misiorowski yesterday in his first action back in the last 2 weeks. Only went 4 innings, 65 pitches, did still have 6 strikeouts, 1 run allowed, none earned. Now, Brewers manager Pat Murphy had discussed earlier in the day that they wanted to build Misiorowski back up after the layoff, which would lead to some shorter starts, but it's what he said after the game that has our attention. Take a listen.
We would have probably let him go further if he was, his delivery and his legs felt great. And yeah, I think he was a little bit out of it. The long layoff kind of affected his delivery and everything else. And I think it was important to notice that and get him out of there then. His velo dropped. He couldn't find the rhythm on his heater and, went to all off-speed stuff. And I think it was important we got him out of there. Exactly. I mean, he didn't throw a commanded heater past the second inning. You know what I mean? It was kind of coming off his legs and kind of getting stuck and then trying to get out of it and the ball was sailing. So, concerning.
And I, after the game, was listening to some of Misiorowski's comments himself, too. He admitted his legs weren't in the position that he thought they should have been at that point, but that he expects to go longer his next start. But when you hear your manager say concerning, What does that make you think?
I mean, we have a start due to fatigue that has been scratched. We have a manager who's talking about the concerning nature of this. We have, in the 3 previous starts prior to this one, a higher rate of home runs, a higher rate of hard contact. Look, I don't know what this is going to mean overall, but I think we're heading down the path of the Brewers, as they said here, and Murphy said throughout his press conference and availability there after the game, which is that they're going to be cautious with this and make sure that Mizorowski is set. This is a team that has very, very big goals, and they rightfully should. They're one of the best teams in the National League, and that goal is to win a World Series, to win a National League pennant. You don't do that without Jacob Mizorowski. And so what do? You make sure that he is right for the more important portion of the season, which is the postseason. So maybe shorter starts, pitch counts, things like that, making sure that he is going to be as prime as he possibly can. But that opens the door for a lot of different things. He was as high as minus 800 at some spots to win the National League Cy Young. He is now down to minus 330 at DraftKings. And this has been a topic that we have discussed quite a bit, but it seems there's 2 paths you could take here. You could go down the path of this is much ado about nothing. That's a cheap price on a dude who's dominating the field, and I'm going to take that because he's going to be right back to it at minus 330 coming up here in a little bit. Or we start to hunt around as we have discussed, and these are numbers courtesy of DraftKings. I keep going back to the name that we've discussed 1,000 times over. Zach Wheeler, who's going to start today, is 14-1 over at FanDuel. It is hard to look away from Wheeler the way that he has been pitching, but he has a similar issue, Stormy, in that from an innings perspective, because of the way his season got started, he has not racked up as many innings as some of his contemporaries in this field. So will that work against him, even if he maintains this torrid stretch that he's on? Will Zach Wheeler be burned by the amount of innings he has not pitched in comparison to some of the others that are in this? But it's hard to turn away from Wheeler at 14-1 given his recent form.
It's interesting we're having this conversation about Mizorowski fresh off our conversation yesterday about Shohei Ohtani and what that would that be able to open the door potentially for MVP with him not being on the mound as much, but for similar reasons, right? Yep. You want to make sure that your guys are at their peak when it matters most. So in terms of those odds at large, at least on DraftKings, we're going to stick to this board quickly. Jacob Mizorowski minus 330, Christopher Sanchez plus 650, Chris Sale and Wheeler 10-1 at DK. Chase Burns 20-1 before we start to get a little bit longer there. Because you mentioned Wheeler in action today, Phillies hosting the Dodgers. Philadelphia did take game 1 of that 4-game set yesterday. Any early thoughts on today's matchup?
Well, we should also note really quickly before we get to that, just that Christopher Sanchez did pitch yesterday and kind of labored through. It took him 99 pitches to get through 5 1/3 and gave up 7 hits, 3 earned runs, did strike out 7 and didn't walk anybody. It was just working hard. And we have now seen this from him. He has given up at least 3 earned runs in the last few starts. That includes, if we want to, the 1 inning that he pitched in the American League. So to the point of where the National League Cy Young race is, even Christopher Sanchez, the second choice, is up there and not pitching his best at this point right now, at least in comparison to where he was at. As far as today is concerned, I think you do wonder if from a pricing standpoint, as we hit about this all the time, is, are we at the top of the market right now with Wheeler and the way that he has been pitching? But it's been absolutely unreal, and he is deserving of it right now. We saw the overnight of like a $1.34 in favor of Wheeler. Look at his last 8 starts, 2.01 ERA, a 2.14 expected, fielding independence at 2.52. He has struck out 36, we'll round up 36% of the batters he's faced over this stretch and walked less than 7% of them. And the crazy part is there's no hard contact at all that he's allowed here. So you see this, you open up $1.34. You mentioned the pricing of this, and it would seem the market agrees that maybe you're a little high. Open up the $1.34. Some spots are as low as minus 120. We said this yesterday with the Dodgers. Not many times in a season you're just going to get that price on the Dodgers. And on the other end, you get Robleski to oppose him. So I'm not surprised that some spots decided to cut down of the dog price here on Los Angeles, seeing that $1.30, something in that range, maybe a little too expensive, even with the way that Wheeler's been pitching. I
mentioned Chase Burns at 20-1. He too is in action today in Seattle. Luis Castillo on the other side there. Could his odds be cut down if he has another big start today? But I know the numbers haven't been trending as up recently.
Yeah, big in what way? Yeah. Because it could be a big start in the sense if he goes out there and shuts down the Mariners, which he would very much like, but big as in the earned runs that he's allowed over these last few is what's been troubling him. Over the last 3 starts for Chase Burns, he's got a 5.29 ERA, 4.28 expected, fielding independence at 4.16. And what's, I think, troubling for Burns is the 2 things that are happening together. Strikeout rate is going down and the walk rate is going up. Over his last 3 starts, he's barely striking out 21%, 22% of opposing hitters while walking 11 of them. Hard hit rates up, barrel rates up. Over the last 3 starts, he's given up 6 barrels. So that's troubling for Burns. In an NL Cy Young race that looks potentially like you could to use the horse racing analogy, come up from the outside and potentially steal one here. Burns has struggled at the worst possible time. And maybe, just bringing this back full circle, maybe that just means it's still going to be Mizorowski, because everybody behind him outside of Wheeler has not been pitching extremely well. And so maybe even with these scuffles that we see from Mizorowski, he's still going to steal this. But this is a big opportunity for Burns on a day after Mizorowski comes out, 4 innings, concerning with the legs and all that kind of stuff. You can go out and dominate an American League contender and put yourself right back in the mix for this NL Cy Young.
I know we've got to go to the break here in a moment, but any quick thoughts on the top of the board for AL Cy Young? Because Cam Schlittler and Dylan Cease have been toggling back and forth for the last little bit here. Currently, slight edge to Schlittler once again. For the Yankees, plus 135, Cease plus 140.
Dustin Swedelson was on the podcast this week, and it was brought up to us by a listener.
Pod to the Futures.
Pod to the Futures, yes. Thank you very much. Why not Sonny Gray? Sonny Gray's at 17-1. He's part of this Boston Red Sox staff that has been absolutely dominant up to this point during this win streak and more. You'll like this. I brought this up as a narrative. If you go back to right before this, because they are now 22-5 after yesterday, won again. Since June 18th, I think is the date, whatever it is. It was a Sonny Gray start. They lost the game, and Gray comes out in the media and says, yeah, we're a bad team. We stink. We're awful. That's when the winning streak started. And he was asked again just yesterday about it, and he said, what's there to change? We were bad, and we changed things now. So, look, that's narrative. It's dumb. Some writers do like that. But the fact that Gray has been performing the way that he has been, and this run from Boston over the last 27 games or so coincides with one of his starts in some really strong words that maybe put a spark under the ass of this team. Worse bets to be made, potentially, in an American League Cy Young race like this.
If the Red Sox win again today, by the way, it'll be 15 straight, which would tie the franchise record that dates back to 1948. My goodness. We mentioned Adam Burke is going to join us to talk college football. He's also one of our great MLB analysts. He's going to stop by to discuss plenty of the lineup for today as well in baseball. But when we return to SEC Media Days, we go. The big dogs, Georgia, on the podium today. We'll be right back.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools. But what they don't want you to know is that you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. VSiN Pro gives you access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Just tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
The Circus Survivor documentary is back for another season, and this one's bigger than ever. 7 all-new episodes kicking off every Wednesday, starting tomorrow night at 9 Eastern. Episode 1 takes you inside the growth of the most electrifying contest in sports betting, now with $18.7 million on the line. Follow the sharp minds and bold personalities who think they've got what it takes to go the distance. Whether you play Circus Survivor yourself or just love the drama of the season-long grind, we know sports are the best reality TV. This is must-watch TV. Check it out again every Wednesday at 9 Eastern on VSiN.
I wanted to check up on you because I believe we're friends. I have struck a friendship with your husband, Chris, as well. And it's been a tough couple of weeks, actually, in the household, I would assume, with your ties to Carolina and the Panthers. First, we get the terrible news that Will Greer has decided to retire.
Devastating.
At quarterback. And then we get the news today that Cam Newton was laid off by ESPN. You guys dealing?
I didn't know he was a full-time employee.
You guys all right?
I must have missed that. I know he's appeared on First Take, but I didn't know he was an employee. So
just wanted to make sure.
I think he'll be okay. I think Chris and Cam Newton will both be okay.
Cookies. We got to play that. I don't know if you know what that reference is, but
I do not. We'll talk more football.
You don't get that reference?
Cookies? No.
Oh, come on now.
Tell me in a commercial.
I'll show it to you. Don't
worry. We
worry.
will talk more NFC South actually today. We're going to be previewing the Atlanta Falcons, but we're going to go to the SEC here as media days roll on in Tampa. While I know the commissioner comments from Greg Sankey yesterday about the SEC commentary of them potentially breaking off from the NCAA is the big news item that everybody's talking about, how he said it's very real. That's a conversation for other shows. We're a betting show, so we're going to stick to the things that impact your wallet today. For now, also, in terms of those, if the SEC wants to be its own thing, they should probably get back to being the big bad wolf in college football, too, because the Big Ten has now won 3 straight national championships. The last time the SEC did it, Georgia in 2022, and they are your favorite to win the SEC this year as well. What do you think?
It did not hit me that that had been that long. I know it's not like super long, but 2022 seems like a lifetime ago.
Well, and this was after a run of, what was it, like 13 of 17 that they had won previously, like prior to this Big Ten run?
I do think that Georgia is the rightful favorite, but I'll say this before we start even as their status as the favorite. I'm writing our SEC preview for the College Football Guide. Look around because of the two conferences that I have been writing, the Mountain West and the SEC, this seems to have the most variety in terms of pricing. So I bring up Georgia, for example. So at DraftKings, they are plus 260. They are the favorite. Over at FanDuel, they're plus 320, and you can get 310 at MGM. They're not the favorite at either of those books. Texas is the favorite at those books. So, again, it's just a little bit more juice for the squeeze. If you do think that Georgia's worth betting, look around because there are some places that have them over 3-1 to win this. But I believe their status as favorite or co-favorite or second choice is pretty much deserved. I mean, you have Gunnar Stockton coming back at quarterback, who potentially could be a Heisman contender. One of my three burning questions for that team is, do they have one at quarterback? You have an offense that, outside of pass catcher, because the wide receiver room is essentially getting like rebuilt and there's a lot of young guys there, offensive line looks pretty solid. Full stable of running backs coming back from a season ago. This offense should be pretty good. We can talk about the minutia of what went wrong from last year on offense and on defense if you'd like. And the defense, I think, is the big question. Last year, if you go back, and this is one of the things I wrote about, their pass defense was not good. Some of it had to do with the secondary play, but a lot of it had to do with a defense, Stormy, that only had 20 sacks last season. They could not pressure opposing quarterbacks really at all. And in the transfer portal, you bring in a couple of guys to potentially help you out. Auburn transfer Amarius Williams, he tears his ACL. So then you have a young guy in Kamari Brooks who's going to come in here, it looks like, and try to help them out. But he's a freshman, so we'll see how much you can really get from a guy like that as a first-time player for you in this system. You do wonder if this defense is going to be able to bounce back after what was kind of a microcosm of their season, a shootout, 39-34 loss to Ole Miss, in which their defense couldn't get a stop.
Yeah.
That, to me, is the big question. I think they deserve it. I think their offense is going to be good. I think Stockton is very good, and I've come around because if you remember when he took over, I had my questions, but I think you've kind of learned that he's pretty solid. I just wonder if maybe at the end of the day, they're good enough to win the SEC, or they're good enough to win a national title if that pass rush can't reemerge at some point.
Well, and I do think you expected, at least in some capacity, the defense to take a step back last year when you lose 6 players to the draft, right? And then this past year, it was another 3 that you lose to the NFL draft. My thing for Georgia is they continue to perform well in the SEC. And they do what they need to do in the regular season. They back-to-back SEC titles, but they haven't even made the semis in those last 2 years for the college football playoff. And you mentioned the loss, and you're up at halftime to Ole Miss, and you can't hang on to that lead in the quarterfinal. So can they get over the hump and get back to the Final Four of the college football playoff? They are 6th on the odds board to win a national championship, where things sit right now. For the conversation about Gunnar Stockton, it seems like Kirby Smart is very high on him taking another step. Here's what he had to say this morning.
Well, I think his presence in the pocket's already improved. I was sitting in a quarterback meeting just a couple days ago, and they were showing clips of him stepping up and running up through the smoke and not turning and running backwards or boarding pressure. And that only comes with experience and age. You know, people forget this guy was really, 1-1 coming into this media day last year. A Texas win on second half and a Notre Dame loss, but he's a whole different person now in terms of experience, maturity, confidence, the people around him. So I'm excited to see his growth.
Finished 7th in the voting for Heisman this past year, 19-1 at DraftKings currently, 8th QB on the board, 9th player on the odds board. If he were to win it this year, first Georgia player since Herschel Walker in 82.
Yeah, you can find him like that 2019, like you said. I think so. I mean, so one of my favorite little things that I dug up, because, you think about Gunnar Stockton, and I think you think of some pretty clutch moments, kind of dragging this team by the scruff of their neck in some tight games late. So if you go back to last season, in the fourth quarter, he completed 83.6% of his passes, averaged 8.5 yards per attempt, and scored a total of 9 touchdowns in those fourth quarters. So he was really, really good. Didn't commit a turnover in the fourth quarter. He was really solid for Georgia in that regard. So you have kind of these clutch time performances. He really was their hero. They finished in the 79th percentile in late down success rate, despite being in the 56th percentile in average third down distance. So they were very average when it came to their average third down distance, but insanely successful on those late downs. And a lot of it had to do with his heroics. So you do wonder if this running game is going to be improved, because they weren't overtly efficient last year. A lot of the efficiency numbers had a team that was pretty below average in that regard. So if they can be better on early downs, put less on his shoulders on these third downs, beat a schedule that is 20th in terms of strength of schedule while you talk about opponents, dude, he's got everything in front of him. If you think they're going to be a team that wins the SEC, to potentially win the Heisman. He was pretty good last year, and one would assume some sort of improvement after that.
One other thing you do have in your back pocket always with Georgia is that they're going to win the games they're supposed to win. 48 straight games won against unranked opponents. The last time they lost to an unranked team was 2019 South Carolina in double OT. We might talk a little South Carolina later on, but I did want to play this sound from new Kentucky head coach Will Stein yesterday on the podium when he was asked about why he thinks he can win big in Lexington.
This is going to sound like really, I think because of me, to be honest. I think because of me. I think I know what it takes. I've seen it at the highest levels. I know what it takes to recruit at this level. And you just got to believe, man. You just got to put the ball down and play. There's not really else to be said. Is it going to happen overnight? I don't know. I really don't. If I had a crystal ball, everybody in this room would be really, really rich right now. I don't. And so the best determination of if what you're doing is working is putting the ball down and playing football. And so there's going to be bumps and roads. I mentioned it in the speech. Like, I'm prepared for tough moments and tough times.
So I'll admit, when I read this quote, I was like, oh, God, Will, what are we doing? And then when I actually listened to him say it, I felt a lot better about it. And I was like, okay, like I already liked Kentucky a little bit and what they're going to do. He's a brilliant offensive mind. Let's see if they can show it on the football field.
Kids would call that an aura gamble. Yes, in slang terms, in today's lexicon. I mean, I dig it. I don't care if it was. I was kind of hoping it was more arrogant, to be honest with you. Why not? I mean, to an extent, you as a head coach, when you're moving up, you are saying that you are believing in yourself. You are gambling on yourself because you think that you are good enough to take up a step in competition, in level. So, yeah, I think I'm down with this. It goes back to like a diet Kurt Cignetti type thing. I think you mentioned that we were talking about that before the show. You need to have some confidence at the top. And look, maybe it doesn't work out. Maybe we'll play this clip 1,000 times over when Kentucky loses every single game and he gets fired in the middle of next year because he's awful as a game manager. Could happen. But I'm with you in the sense of you see what the track record could potentially be, the offenses that he's worked with, what he's bringing in here as well. And I think you realize that there is some pretty strong upside for Kentucky.
I think a lot, especially offensively with what he's going to bring to the table. Engineered the most efficient offense in the country the last 3 years as the offensive coordinator at Oregon, led the nation in EPA per play, yards per play, successful play rate over those 3 years. And the offensive coordinator that he brings over in Joe Sloan was LSU's offensive coordinator the last few years. I like him a lot. I like their DC, Jay Bateman. But to go back to offense real quickly, Mark Stoops, since the turnover to the NIL era that we live in now, Kentucky really did not invest in giving him a lot of NIL opportunities to bolster that roster. From day one with Will Stein, they are investing. The things that they've done in that offensive line and other areas, like I am very excited to see what they can do in terms of building over the course of the next couple of years. Their schedule is just a little too rough for me this year to find a real betting opportunity on them this year.
This is the cool and interesting part about this era is you see these programs now. Dustin and I brought this up again on Pod to the Futures thing. You and I have discussed it the other day when we were talking a little ACC, but Cal as well, where all of a sudden these programs are finding money and they're starting to invest, and you see some real upside because they're retaining talent or going out and getting some because the money is now somewhat plentiful or at least more than it was prior.
One program that's always had money and investment but hasn't had the results the last few years, Auburn. New head coach Alex Golesh. Our own Adam Burke has a full write-up in this year's college football betting guide about the new head coaches in new places. Golesh, one of them. Curious to pick his brain on that and so much more when we return on Money Moves.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Stormy, Buonantony, and Jonathan Von Tobel with you back here on Money Moves. With the NFL preseason just a couple weeks away, the best bettors are already getting ahead. You can lock in early bird pricing on our football special for just $175 right now. Price is going up next month, so join now while you can. You get instant access for the 2026-27 NFL betting guide, plus our upcoming college football guide, giving you everything you need to attack futures this football season. But remember, the sooner you sign up, the more value you get with VSiN Pro access to everything we do across every major sport sport through the Super Bowl. That's the daily best bets, real-time bet splits, AI-powered prop projections, 24/7 video, and more. If you want to learn more, head over to vsin.com/subscribe now. That's vsin.com/subscribe. And one of the wizards of putting together all of our guides here at the network, Adam Burke, joins us here in person, vsin.com managing editor. You put in so much time, effort, and work on all of these guides, and I know you are knee-deep in the college football betting guide right now.
Yeah, I only have one team left to write of the conferences that I have, UL Monroe, saving the best for last, obviously. But yeah, so the next few days will be all about editing all the submissions, making sure that I'm keeping up on the hosts for sending in their best bets, which are due a week from today. But also thanks to JVT for doing 2 conferences, for all of our writers who are contributing. Makes my job a lot easier that I've got a lot of good people that care about this company, care about these guides, care about what they're doing, and makes my job a hell of a lot easier.
Ask Stormy. I've been tossing my burning questions to Stormy to ask if they're any good or not.
He's got some pretty creative ones. I was impressed, actually.
See?
I will say I didn't enjoy when he was like, "You may have noticed those 3 questions rhymed."
Yeah,
like,
okay,
you're doing too much.
I like that.
You're doing too much.
I will say one of the teams I wrote up this morning actually is Troy. And the Trojans gave up 59 sacks last year. So there may or may not be a protection pun in my write-up about Troy.
Okay. Former Troy head coach, then Tulane
Condoms.
head coach, now
Get it?
Florida head coach. We're glossing over these
Thank
things.
you.
We're moving
Appreciate
on.
that.
We're moving on.
Got to make sure everyone out there knows.
One of, I believe, 33 different head coaches in college football this season. And I know that was one of the write-ups that you did. We were talking SEC Media Days last segment, a few new head coaches in that league as well. And I think the 2 of the more interesting names of all of the coaching hires this season were John Sumrall as well as Alex Golesh at Auburn. What
Ask
are
him
some
my
of
burning
your...
question. Ask him my
You
burning
do your
question.
own burning question.
Can USF win the SEC? Because that's essentially what we're doing here.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, I mean, Byron Brown is probably an SEC level talent, but I don't really know about everybody else on the team.
Yeah.
Certainly you understand what the thinking is, right? I mean, Auburn's been a very, very stout defensive program for a very long period of time. They just haven't been good on offense for quite a few years now. So Golesh, you figure, you kind of got that defensive pipeline. Maybe now you get the offensive guy. But yeah, to your point, right? I mean, like Charles Huff took his entire Marshall team down to Southern Miss and they went 7-6 in the Sun Belt. Like, what is this USF team going to do? With just wearing Auburn on their jerseys.
I feel like you have that question with a lot of different programs this year, right? Like we were talking about Penn State and all the Iowa State players that have come over. But we have also seen, and granted, maybe he's the exception, not the rule, but what Curt Cignetti was able to do at Indiana. Yeah, he had a roster full of JMU guys, but they produced. So which side of the coin are you going to get with some of these transfers?
Yeah, I mean, it's really fair. Right? It's a very fair question, especially because, it helps that there's familiarity with, the schemes they're going to be installed, especially when the coordinators are coming too. I think if it's just the head coach and the coordinators kind of hang behind or they take other jobs, I don't think it's really as impactful because a lot of times it's the coordinators, the position coaches who are, sealing the deal on recruiting those guys. Those are the guys that spend a lot of time, with those position groups, with the offense, with the defense. The head coach is just kind of the CEO of the program usually. It has to be face of the program, all the media obligations, stuff like that. So yeah, the head coach obviously knows his guys, but probably doesn't know them as well as the coordinators do. So I think if you've got everybody coming together, the head coach and the coordinators, or maybe a coordinator who he previously worked with, I think that's a lot more impactful than just a head coach who then brings in different guys.
Well, specifically with Auburn, then, what do you like, or maybe you don't, but I personally do, like the blend of coaches that you have with Golesh bringing his OC over, but then defensively being able to keep DJ Durkin, I think was huge for the guys that already are there at Auburn and have had the success defensively to maintain that.
Yeah, and I think that's an excellent point, right? I think it says something to me when a new head coach comes in and is willing to keep one of the coordinators from the previous regime, right? Because a lot of these guys, whether it's nepotism or they just want guys who think the same way that they do, they're going to bring in their own guys more often than not, right? It's the same reason why an AD takes over, fires the head coach. He's got a guy that he wants to bring in. I think it says something when a head coach comes in and keeps the coordinator. And when you look at Auburn over the last 2 seasons, 18.5, 19.1 points per game, like it's working, right? So if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing. But the offense is very broken. So it makes sense for Golesh to want to go that route. Yeah, I think it helps, especially because, the way that it works with the transfer portal when new head coaches come in or when previous head coaches depart, right? You've got free reign to basically go anywhere you want to go. If you're able to keep the coordinator around, you're probably able to keep some of the talent around on that side of the ball. So it is something that does help Auburn. But at the same time, the holes that they do have, the fact that they're plugging them with guys who played at South Florida, you start to wonder a little bit, especially about the offense.
With the new head coaches, was this just first-time head coaches or just new coaches in general?
So it's all the new head coaches of new programs, including ones that had the interim tag stripped. So, for example, I wrote about Pete Golding at Ole Miss, even though he coached them through the playoff and through that whole Lane Kiffin saga and all that, still included him. So anybody who's taking over a program full-time, I included in the list in the breakdown.
The reason why I ask is Stormy and I have been at odds with the aforementioned Matt Campbell and what his expectations are at Penn State. The easy schedule is one of the gravitational forces that might allow him to succeed. But where'd you fall here on Campbell?
Yeah, and Campbell's, look, I think bringing in D'Anton Lynn as the defensive coordinator is a pretty big deal too, because again, I just talked about it. I think the head coaches are guys that seal the deal on 5 stars, but they're really just the guys who are the faces of the program out there doing the media obligations, all of that. They do make the in-game decisions where some guys are clearly a lot better at that than others are. But yeah, I think it's a pretty reasonable question to ask, right? Iowa State, they had some players, right? And Brock Purdy's obviously gone on to have a pretty good NFL career. But in the Big Ten, programs are recruiting nationwide now, right? So is that something Campbell's going to be able to do? Is he going to be able to go down to Florida and get guys to come to Penn State, go to Texas or California and get guys to go to Happy Valley? I think that's the really, really big question here, because I think he did a really good job of maximizing the talent he did get at Iowa State. But at Penn State, you have a higher expectation for the talent that you're bringing into the program. So that's what I'm curious about. Campbell can, make a good dish with the ingredients that he has. But if he's given world-class ingredients, can he put together a Michelin star kind of dish, which is what the expectation is at Penn State? Very different from what it is at Iowa State.
I forgot about that, too. Held back Brock Purdy for a very long time. Not a good look for your boy, Matt Campbell.
I am a big Rocco Becht fan, especially with him coming back healthy. But again, I know that I have belabored the point with JVT, and I'll do it again for our audience here that might not be on the visual side to see when that schedule was pulled up. But have you seen this schedule? The 3 G5 non-con games, Marshall, Temple, and Buffalo. Tough one, yes, against USC on October 10th. Road trip to the Big House the following week. But outside of that, they don't face another Big Ten team with a win total above 7.5. No Ohio State, no Oregon, no Indiana. Even if this roster isn't among the top 4 in the conference, they could play like it with this schedule.
Yeah, and the schedule makes a huge difference, right? Especially with these super conferences where now there's 17, 18 teams in these conferences. If you end up getting a pretty favorable draw, it's a really, really big deal for you. And Penn State has a very favorable draw with a new head coach, new coordinators, some new players, all that kind of thing. This couldn't be set up better for Campbell, which does make me wonder, right? If he does end up ultimately falling short here, then, how is year one viewed? Because this is a program that needed a change. There's no doubt about that. James Franklin leaving, I think it was a good thing for both sides. But there's an expectation here that you're going to be in the Big Ten championship game at a minimum, right? And if Campbell does fall short of that, does it become, he could win at Iowa State and he could win at Toledo, but he can't win at Penn State? And then how much does the pressure start to mount and all of that? Because narrative drives a lot of this stuff, right? Especially when players can just go wherever they want to, hear what they want to hear, believe what they want to believe. So I'll be curious to see what happens in Happy Valley this year. And
I also, by the way, should have mentioned Washington. That is a tough road game out there at Husky Stadium. We're going to be talking about that team a little bit later on. It is a team that I really like.
Road game against Northwestern.
They'll win that game. I still feel confident in that. Barring injury.
My man Chip Kelly's ready to call some plays and destroy some
last minute. I know there are a ton of big name head coaches.
Is that his son? That basketball video that you showed earlier?
Yeah.
Stop. That were on the move. Was there one in particular, though, as you were going through the exercise that you really liked the fit?
I can tell you one I don't really like.
Yeah.
Because I just have that right in front of me here.
Give us some unders.
Love pessimism.
It's having a Pritchard at Stanford.
Yeah,
I just think this is such a boring, unimaginative hire from Andrew Luck. They just got a big $50 million NIL donation from one of their donors. I think they could have done something more here. Look, I understand this is a very, very difficult job. I think in retrospect, we don't appreciate what David Shaw did enough in Palo Alto. The academic requirements make it really hard, especially in the transfer portal era, to bring in guys that are really talented. But Pritchard, first-time head coach, going back to a program that he knows, that's fine. But the ACC is a different beast nowadays, especially with all the travel that Stanford has. So I would have liked to have seen a higher upside higher than I think what they brought in.
4 wins a year ago, and that seems about right, maybe, for what they could do this year as well. Okay, we got to step aside here. When we return, Adam's going to stick around a little bit more, maybe more college football, but definitely a couple plays in MLB to discuss as well. Stick around.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Man, I love the internet. I can't stop staring at this picture of Chip Kelly in a purple construction vest, hard hat, getting ready to be Northwestern's new offensive coordinator in 2026. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you back here on Money Moves. VSiN managing editor Adam Burke with us as well. You never know what.
I mean, I think Northwestern might be a plucky team.
No, I think they'll be fine, but I don't think they're going to win a ton of games.
No, but, an overrated Penn State team hits the road.
Why do you think they're overrated? Because I like them. They're overrated now. All of a sudden, you're insane. Adam, of course.
You act like they're taking on the MAC every day. I'm just going to say. It's a lot of Power 5 teams on that schedule.
That is a very easy schedule. On paper, we never know what teams are actually going to be, but where we are looking at it right now, that is a very easy schedule, and I don't think you can argue that.
Do you heavy sigh before the start of every segment, or did that just happen just before this previous one?
I either heavy sigh or I'm laughing.
Okay.
So that's pretty much the 50-50 gamble you're going to get.
Great to work with me.
When we were in the commercial break, though, prior to me seeing this image,
Laton James?
we were discussing how you changed your system for power ratings this year. Care to elaborate for our audience?
Yeah, so look, I mean, with the transfer portal, right, I mean, it's virtually impossible to keep track of everything that's going on, So you do end up playing a lot of catch up. And what I decided to do this year, usually I do my own power ratings, right? I'll do positional power ratings. So I'll have a scale that kind of goes basically from like 5 to 15 for quarterbacks, offensive and defensive line, and then coaching, intangibles, stuff like that. And then from about 4 to 10 for running backs, wide receivers, linebackers, and defensive backs. So I kind of just get myself into a 100-point scale by sort of looking at each one of the position groups in that regard. What I did this year instead, though, was I took 6 sources that I think to be very trusted. So 2 of them S&P Plus and FPI, so the Football Power Index, both from ESPN. Bill Connolly's S&P Plus, of course. Took the numbers from Team Rankings. I think that's just, kind of a pretty popular public source. But then I also took numbers from Tyler Shoemaker and the T-Shoe Index, from our own Steve Makinen from off of VSiN.com, and then from Brad Powers, a guy who I've known for a very long time. We actually grew up very close to each other, a guy who worked for Phil Steele for a while, and then, of course, now off on his own, and a frequent guest on our VSiN airwaves here. So I took those 6 sources, and I recalculated them on the scale that I usually go with from a power rating standpoint. It's about 93 to 40, give or take, from number 1 down to the last team, which is number 138 this season, which is UMass for me. So I did that, and then I averaged out what all 6 of those sources had, then put together the power ratings based off of that. And then as I was going through and doing my research and my writing for the College Football Guide, kind of moved around some teams up and down a little bit that I like more than what the market is probably going to say. So that was the way that I did it for this year. And maybe it can be viewed as a shortcut. Maybe it can be viewed as laziness. But honestly, that's what these people do. And that's what these sources do, following college football pretty much year round and the transfer portal and the recruiting cycle and all that. So I felt like that was a better way to have a good set of power ratings going into the season. And then, of course, I'll make my adjustments on my own as we go throughout the season.
Was there a team that you found maybe your personal opinion differed quite much, whether it's good or bad, than the others, the rankings you compiled?
Yeah, I think the biggest one, and obviously this is a team that everyone's going to be super, super interested in, is Georgia Southern out of the Sun Belt. Mm-hmm. A team that, I think they actually have like the right kind of quarterback now to fit that offense and what they want to do, because they would really prefer to throw the football and throw the football around the yard. I mean, when Kyle Van Treese was in there, I think in 2022, this is a program that used to run the option, but he's the 3rd leading passer all time for this program. And he played 1 season and he had 4,283 yards. So that's what they want to do. And they've got Max Johnson now. And Max Johnson has played in like 26 different places. He's probably 27 years old by now. But he's a dude who can throw it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's precisely what they wanted here. And, Clay Helton, has been just fine with having a one-year starter at quarterback and just kind of rotating through the portal. So I think that's a team that it's going to wind up exceeding expectations here. So Georgia Southern is one that I do like. And also, it does appear I'm higher on Clemson than what a lot of people are out there. I think this is a bounce-back year where the guy that Dabo Swinney loves to throw under the bus, Garrett Riley, is gone now. Chad Morris is back. Those two are obviously going to get along well. I think losing Cade Klubnik's a good thing because he regressed. I think Clemson is a team that, and I did play them 14-1 to win the ACC.
Could have led with Clemson.
Yeah, but you know how I am, man. I mean, I'm the mid-major maestro in college basketball, right?
Go.
Of course, I'm going to talk group of 6.
Of
course, I'm going to talk group of 6 first.
This is, by the way, is just the tip of the iceberg for everything you're going to get in the college football betting guide that'll be out in just a couple of weeks. VSiN.com/subscribe. We have our football special going on right now where you get unlimited access to everything we do here at the network, which includes the guides through the Super Bowl. But this deal is going to end fast, so get in there while you still can. Last couple minutes, in addition to all of the work that Adam does with the guides, with the website. You are also one of our great baseball analysts here. You have daily articles out here covering MLB. And one of the phrases that I know we bring up a lot here on the show, and it's something that you and Matt Humans used to say a lot, don't ask a bad team to do good things for you. You have 2 bad teams today that you have bets on. So talk me through how you got to this decision.
I do. It's actually a bummer. My favorite play was the Pirates tonight, but that game got rained out. So unfortunately, can't fade Will Warren today. We'll see if we'll be able to do it tomorrow because I think the Pirates are a really tough matchup for him. So little nugget for tomorrow or whenever Will Warren pitches. The Kansas City Royals, they are a bad team. That is very, very true. But Luinder Avila, so he had one just massive blow up. Just an awful start against Houston. 2/3 of an inning, gave up 8 runs, really skewed his numbers. I'm not saying he's great by any means or anything like that, but he has a 3.12 ERA in his other starts if you take away that one. Obviously, you can't take away a start, right? It happened. It is what it is. But I think he's been pretty decent here, kind of eating up some innings for a rotation that badly needs it with some of the injuries they have, including, of course, Cole Reagans. But I'm looking to fade Tyler Mahle in this one. So Tyler Mahle is a guy, you look on the road, 8.45 ERA this season away from Oracle Park. 350 batting average against, almost a 400 on base percentage against, 577 slugging percentage against. Somehow, I don't know how, he threw 5 1/3 shutout innings against Tampa in one of his road starts. Maybe Tropicana Field helping him out there. His other road starts this season, 5 runs twice, 4 runs twice, 6 runs once, and 8 runs once. I think Kansas City, with Mahle outside, warm day, of course, warm and humid in Kansas City, I think this offense is going to do something. And I will say, and I don't know if the lineup is out yet, but this is a number that should get better because Bobby Witt Jr. is probably not going to play tonight. I left yesterday's game with a back issue, missed the game prior to that. He's hitting under 200 in the month of July, not driving the baseball at all whatsoever. He's very, very clearly hurt. The modeling crowd who puts in the lineups and then spits out the number on the games, they're going to look down upon the Royals because Bobby Witt's not in the lineup. I think that might actually be a positive because he's playing hurt. You're going to get a healthier player out there in place of him. So I think you can wait on this one, probably get the Royals a little bit better of a number in a couple of hours or so. But I do like Kansas City here. Minus 105 was the number I saw this morning against the Giants.
The other bad team, there are not many things to root for when it comes to the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, but Walber Urania is one of them.
Yep.
And he has been fantastic. So I cannot wait for them to ruin this in some way or form, but he will pitch tonight, and it is a wonder to see him. And you're going to go with him today?
I am going to go with the Angels today. I mean, look, I got to give this team a lot of credit. They're not great by any means, but Jose Soriano, phenomenal start to the season, even though he regressed very quickly. Good start last night for him, though. Reed Detmers has been terrific. They've figured some things out on the pitching side, and I think maybe if they figure out how to actually use Ryan Johnson at the same level for a while, he may end up being a pretty good arm, too. But Urania's a guy, 2.88 ERA, 3.31 expected, 3.94 FIP. Does have a walk problem. That's his biggest issue. It's kind of Soriano's biggest issue, too. But the Cardinals don't walk a whole lot. They're dead last in weighted on base average against right-handed pitching here in the month of July. Just a 7.1% walk rate. Urania's a big-time ground ball guy. Hard to score off of ground ball guys nowadays, right? All the defensive scouting reports that are out there, how hard it is to string hits together, all these kinds of things. Whereas it's been very easy to score off of Matthew Liberatore this season, giving up a lot of home runs. Angels are going to run 8 or 9 right-handed batters at the Southpaw here tonight. And the Angels bullpen kind of stabilized a little bit now with Ryan Zefferjon in that closing role. I do like the Angels tonight. Buyer beware, because again, not a very good team, but I don't think the Cardinals are a very good team either. I think they overperformed in the first half, and I think we see them come back to earth in the second half.
Last thing before we let you go, Red Sox have been on an insane win streak.
Yep.
They're minus 113 favorites to keep it going today and tie a franchise record. Eduardo Rivera going for them. Can they keep it up against the Orioles? Can they get one more?
Well, this is a really interesting start here for Kyle Bradish. I'm always concerned about guys who just get paid. So it's very rare to sign a contract extension at this time of the year, something that they probably talked about over the course of the All-Star break. But I think it's tough. Sometimes you sign that big deal, 5-year, $90 million extension, and like you want to prove that you're worth it all in one start. And sometimes you can, whether it's a little bit of a nervy start or you just try to do too much, you nibble too much, something like that. Also, the context of this one with Boston on such a long winning streak. Little worried about Kyle Bradish tonight. Not a game that I played, and Ranger Suarez was supposed to start this game for the Red Sox tonight, but Rivera is going to get the start instead. Little worried about Bradish tonight. We'll see how he ends up doing, but it was not a game that I could bet on for that reason.
Awesome breakdown as always. I look forward to us nearing college football season and getting into the intricacies of teams like Troy and UTEP, and it's going to be a blast. Thank you for this. We'll see you next week.
Always fun.
VSiN's own Adam Burke. Everybody follow him on X at Skating Tripods. We got to step aside. Kicking off hour 2 next, diving into the NFL. Will the Atlanta Falcons finally end the playoff drought?